Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of MOJO Rising, How to Make Cancer Suck Less. This is going to be a really tough episode for a lot of people to listen to because you don't want to know this information, but it is the difference in sometimes being able to live in joy and living in anxiety and fear. And you know, my goal in life is to help everyone maximize joy. It is my mantra. So today is really about that. How can you maximize joy and really live in joy? And the only way to do that is if you help to minimize that risk. So today's caption of what we're doing here today in this podcast is to help you plan for the worst so you can actually live your very best. So this is going to be a really important podcast, not just if you are newly diagnosed or not if you were diagnosed with terminal cancer, but for everyone to understand how you remove the anxiety from your shoulders and live your best life. So we're going to spend some time today of how do you plan for the worst or how do you plan for the end? And I have brought with you a special friend of mine from college who had a huge career change a few years ago and went in to really be a consultant around death. We have them around marriages, we have them around babies, but she was the first person I ever knew who was a death consultant. And what she's been able to do is really revolutionize the experience of dying and the peace you can get within that through her professional expertise. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our audience to Rachel Donnelly. So Rachel, will you give us a quick background around how you got into this field?
Hey, Julie, I'm so glad to be here. And thanks so much for having me. Yeah, this is not a career choice that I thought was going to, I was going to make my way to. It's been a very long and windy path. But as I look back, it's funny that looking back, I feel like my whole life has been leading up to this moment. Like I was meant to do this. I grew up at a very small town where my dad was the only doctor. So I sort of grew up being around going to hospitals with him, spending time around sick people and dying people. So it was very, I guess, comfortable, which sounds weird, but just very normal to me. And then unfortunately, when I was 13, my dad was diagnosed with cancer and then died a couple of years later. Um, and that was a huge shock to me. It was a very, milestone moment in my life. And then fast forward after, you and I went to college together, my mom got sick and passed away pretty suddenly from cancer as well. And I was thrown into this world of having to settle an estate and not only settle one, but basically settle my parents' estate and then take over the care of my mom's brother, my uncle, who was in latter stages of Parkinson's disease and didn't have any other family members, so needed an advocate, someone to take care of him, manage his finances, manage his care. And after he eventually passed away, I was just completely overwhelmed, settling two estates in tandem at the same time. And I thought to myself, why isn't there a quarterback, a consultant, a project manager for death? Why isn't there someone who can help me manage all of these logistics that are unavoidable, either when you're facing an end of life situation or when you've lost a loved one? And after a couple of years I was in higher education fundraising my entire career, I just said, you know what? I've just got to do this. I've got to take just this chance. If I have this need, I can't be alone. And I know that there are others out there who have a similar pain point. When my real goal being to help give families more peace of mind in getting better organized, but then also to help shoulder some of that burden, take tasks off of people's plate so they could get back to their own grief journey. Because it really robbed me of grieving sort of both of my parents and, my uncle, because I was managing so many logistics.
I really like that, the way you phrase this of like, this is one of the most fragile moments of life. And it is the thing you're most scared about. And it is the only thing you're guaranteed besides taxes in life. And so it's
100%.
I think this is one of those things where people feel like if you plan for this, it's like calling for the Grim Reaper. And that's not what this is at all. In fact, this is planning for the worst so you can spend the moments you have. However, if it's a million moments or if it's 10 moments, you can spend those really living in joy. And so I think I just want to disassociate that this is not us calling for the Grim Reaper. This is us making sure we have a strategy in place so we don't have to invest energy here further. That's what I would say, Rachel. Would you agree?
100%. And, I always say, just like talking about sex will not make you pregnant, talking about death is not going to, call the Grim Reaper anytime sooner. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. We all share discomfort around our own mortality. I think that that's completely normal. I do as well. So it's not one of those people that I'm like, oh, yay, death. It's so exciting. And, so, yay. But it's just a part of life. And I think that there is so much joy in facing this, in getting better prepared, and in knowing those around you, your loved ones, your family are going to be taken care of and have all the information that they need to settle your affairs and to really represent you, after you're gone. So
what is the alternative to doing nothing? Like, let's say, I mean, most people get cancer and you get scared and you get fear and you're wrapped up and you don't have a lot of brain power and you're living in this place where you've abdicated your control. So let's just play that out. Like, what happens if that's where you live and you don't choose to face this? What is the alternative? Like, what happens if you do nothing?
yeah, and I hear this all the time. A couple of weeks ago, I did a social media post that was called the 3 things I call BS on in terms of estate planning. And the first one being, I'll be dead, what do I care? And while I get that, your family will care. Your loved ones will care. If you have a business, your employees will care. Everybody is going to care, and you're going to leave them a flaming dumpster fire by not doing anything. And if you love your family, take care of your own stuff. Why do you expect your family to stop their lives, to stop what they're doing, and attend to the crap that you couldn't you couldn't take care of while you were alive? And I know that sounds pretty harsh. There are always instances where someone's going to die suddenly and it couldn't be helped. That is, of course, going to happen. Take care of your stuff. It's your mess. It's your life. It's your legacy. Why just let it float away with no planning, no organization, and no forethought?
Sure.
Yeah, you will leave a flaming dumpster fire for your family. They will not know what your debts are, what your assets are, what you wanted, what was important to you. I could go on and on and on.
So I think that's a really interesting part. Like, let's break that out just a little bit more. The first part I think you just hit on was money. Like, it costs a lot of money to go through probate court and to go through these things, and it's miserable. And when I think about a family member and they didn't do all the right things, and so we thought it was buttoned up. It wasn't buttoned up. After she died, it was months of courts and figuring things out and lawyers, and like, ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that stuff. So for that shit. So no, they don't. And death is one of the most expensive events in the life of a family. The average cost of a funeral, I think, is around $10,000 to $12,000. That's a lot of money. Yeah. It takes an average of over 500 hours for an executor to settle an estate. An effort, and over 100 plus tasks. And if you do nothing, the proverbial scavenger hunt is even more lengthy and just frustrating if they don't know anything about your life. I'm working with so many clients right now where their parents died suddenly and they had no idea. Did their dad, in this case, it was both of their dads, these clients, what debt did they have? What did they own? Did they have any life insurance? Did they have any retirement accounts? So we're doing this discovery work and detective work to find all of these things that they have no idea whether they exist or not. And it is lengthy and it's cumbersome, and it just adds to their grief journey.
I just, I mean, the industrial psychologist, dork, data G, whatever, in me just quickly calculated that you just said 500 hours for the average estate. That is 3 months of full-time employment that you take to do this. Or you can prepare for that and actually have some really good thought and project management done. And that becomes something that's easy to execute. So you're doing this. And I think the words we use that you've used with me before are to protect your legacy. This is exactly what you're doing.
100%. Like, you've worked hard in your life. I've worked hard to get where I am. It's not just about money. Your legacy is not just about that. It's about the essence of you, what you stand for, your memories, the friends and the family that you've built around you. Why would you just not do anything to help protect and safeguard that?
When we were talking to prep for this episode, you said something that really struck me, and it stayed with me for a long time. And that was the story of Nobel Prize. So would you mind sharing that with our listeners? Because I think it's a really interesting one.
Yeah. So I was rereading this story to prep for this. But Alfred Nobel, who was, born in Sweden and joined his family business. He was he was the inventor of dynamite. And when he invented it, he meant for it to be used in like infrastructure and construction type projects, but it ended up being used in warfare. That was not his original intent, but that's what it ended up being used for. And he had sort of this Tom Sawyer moment where a Paris newspaper, his brother passed away, and a Paris newspaper published the obituary mistakenly that he had passed away and not his brother. And I forgot the title of the article, but it was basically like the death man has died. I forgot the exact word, but it was not a flattering obituary title. And he was just, I think, heartbroken. And because he was very much a peace advocate, and he was heartbroken that was how he was remembered. So he took that peek into his own mortality and decided to create the Nobel Institute, which now awards, 5 different Nobel Peace Prizes or Nobel Prizes. One of them being the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, but what an interesting and amazing experience to have. Most of us will not have that experience to preview our obituary, but I think about that all the time, that, oh my God, what would be the title of my obituary if it were to be written tomorrow?
That it's a really interesting exercise that one day in therapy, I definitely want to walk through, of actually writing an obituary. Because I think it would be interesting to say, like, okay, what would I actually want to be said? And is this strong enough? Do I want this to be my legacy? So I love that idea.
Yeah.
But
I think yours would be the data diva. That would be.
Oh, I like it. We're moving from data G to a data diva. I like it. How to make using data cool. We'll see if I can accomplish that in my lifetime. But okay, so Rachel, what is this? So we've talked a little bit about the benefits, and that is basically to not leave a flaming dumpster fire for your family, to save money, to save time, and to live in joy. But what does it actually feel like to work with you?
Yeah. So I work with clients in sort of 2 capacities. Helping clients through what I call legacy planning and organization. So working with them one-on-one to help them sort of do an inventory and audit of their end of life or estate planning to date. Even though I'm not an attorney, what I do is I'm like, where have you completed a will or a trust or a financial power of attorney? And where is all that information? What is your system for keeping that organized? Is it in a shoebox under your bed? Is it in a safety deposit box? So let's really create an organized system so that your family, your executor knows exactly how to find those important documents and paperwork if something were to happen to you. And then also, one of the biggest parts of that is organizing their digital estate. And what I mean by that is one of I'd say the biggest players at the estate planning table these days is going through and documenting how do you pay your bills? What email addresses do you have? How do you store your photos? and who has the unlock code to your phone and those sorts of things. I think the average internet user has over 207 online accounts with distinct usernames and passwords. And it's not as if someone can sit at home and wait for your mail to come if something were to happen to you, because so much is electronic statements and or sent to, or is it the cloud or in your email. So going through those sort of blind spots that I have noticed in my time and working with clients after a loss. So to help them get organized and, like I said, really tackle those knowledge gaps and those critical details I saw that were being left out over and over and over again. So those are two of the mainstays of working with me in the legacy planning and organization. Everything is customized, everything is very bespoke and customized to whatever their needs and goals are. We also talk about, what do you want to have happen to your body? What do you want? A ash scattering party in Cabo with a craft tequila tasting. It doesn't have to be hashtag your grandma's funeral. It can be a memorial event that perfectly sums you up. So we talk about a lot of those sort of issues with the main goal of documenting those wishes, those desires that usually aren't, like I said, tackled in traditional estate planning.
I think it's really funny you say that, because so today is actually, while this episode won't air on today on the anniversary, today is actually the anniversary of when I was able to begin immunotherapy 1 year ago today.
Wow.
And so last night I was kind of rethinking through, a year ago at this moment, I knew I had stage 4 aggressive inoperable chemo-resistant colon cancer. I knew I didn't have an answer. I knew I had a great team, but I had hope, because I knew I was MSI high, which meant immunotherapy would likely be a good fit for me. But I was pretty lost. And I remember calling my parents just about a year ago, and I said, "Hey guys, I love New Orleans and I love fun funk music. So if I die, I want there to be a second line, which is a parade where they have a brass band and people parade behind the casket." And my mother was like, "Not only no, but hell no." But this is one of those moments where it's like, that to me was, if I go down, I want to go down knowing that I like to party and I was having fun, and maximize joy is my theory. And I don't want this to be an event where people are in black crying. I want people to live and talk about my stories and make me a legend in their minds for that day and like dance it out. So It's one of those things where it was nuts, but for the record, if anything happens to me, there better be a second line somewhere behind my funeral, because I want there to be a party, because this is a celebration of what I've done versus what I'm missing out on.
Exactly. But if you don't share that with people, nobody will know. And it's also, when I had to plan my uncle's funeral, I had no idea what he wanted. And I felt so inept at creating a funeral memorial that represented him, because he did not share what he wanted. And it's a lot of pressure on someone to do that. It's sort of their final swan song, and you don't know what they wanted. So those are some of the areas that we tackle together. And legacy planning have 3 different packages to best serve clients. And then the other side of the coin in working with me is what I call after loss consulting. That is when I work with clients who are the executor, the administrator of their loved one's estate, to walk them step by step and creating a customized roadmap to help them settle their loved one's estate, whether that is helping to do research, helping them build their team. Do they have an attorney, a CPA, a financial advisor, an appraiser for a rare gold coin collection? How do they get rid of the Hummel figurines and all the things? So walking and working with them step by step to take tasks off of their plate, and then also triage, streamline, and prioritize tasks.
Okay. So, most people are going to tend to think, oh, this is something I need to do when I've been given a stage 4 terminal diagnosis. Let's talk a little bit about, like, when are the moments in life where this is appropriate? Beyond, of course, that's an appropriate moment, but really that's probably too beyond where it's appropriate. So let's talk a little bit about when should you do this?
So I hate the word estate planning sometimes, because people have this idea that it's only for rich people and it's only for old people. And that's why I like to use legacy planning or just life planning. So if you owe or you own, this is for you. This is for you to get your stuff together. But even if you're 18 or over, you need someone who's going to advocate on your behalf, whether that is naming a healthcare agent, whether that's having a financial power of attorney, and also someone that knows the unlock code to your phone, or something like that. I had someone reach out to me a couple of weeks ago who's a good friend of theirs. Their adult son died. I think he was 19 tragically. They did not have the unlock code to his phone and weren't able to access his photos, videos, and all of those sorts of things. And Apple will not give that information to you. So some of those things, if you're 18 and over, if you're going off to college, someone needs to have sort of those basic safeguards to advocate on your behalf, and then to be able to access some information and pay bills, access accounts if something, God forbid, if you were incapacitated or something happened.
So I just heard, when is the appropriate time to do legacy planning? And the answer is there's not a wrong time. Anytime
No.
you're 18 or over, whether you own, whether you rent, whether you owe, whether you have money, like, this isn't something that's for the rich and the old. This is
No.
something that it really should be. Everyone has a plan in place, because again, the only thing that we know is for sure is death and taxes. So let's just go ahead
Yeah.
and plan for it.
We all know how this ends. And like I
Yeah.
said, we don't want to think about this. It is very depressing to some people to think about this, but my goodness, I feel so much joy knowing that my husband, my kids, those around me will be, not shouldered with these burdens, and that they would be taken care of should something happen to me. And it's just such a weight off of your plate to have things organized and ready to go.
For sure. All right. Okay. Let's add some levity to this. So I'm guessing in your line of work, you have seen some crazy stuff, whether that's from estranged family members or things that you've had to dig out after someone's died. So can you tell us any fun or interesting or stories of things to avoid, however you want to take this question? But like, what is some of the crazy stuff you've seen in your line of work?
Oh my goodness. Well, we all have our Pandora's box. I mean, let's be honest here. And I find so many Pandora's boxes in people's houses when I work with the executor to help, clean out an estate owned property. Just let me go ahead and tell you, you don't want somebody else to find your sex toys. I'm just going to go ahead and be upfront and honest about that. I have found so many, and, hats off to them. Kudos. That's great. You do you. But I would not want a random person to find those things in my house. So have work with somebody to be sort of your sex toy delegate, or have a box that you keep things in that says, self-destruct upon my dying or upon my passing. But come up with a plan. Don't traumatize your kids. Don't traumatize your other family members or friends. Figure out what to do with that stuff.
I love that. I love it. I love it. And I have had the misfortune of an ex. I had to find that of his mother and take care of that. And so that moment of, oh no, I appreciate and feel fully and can empathize with that moment. So I agree. What about sometimes, one of the challenges is with family. So
Yeah.
anything around that from from a family perspective or estrangement or things like that, that this you've seen or would be advice you'd give
Yeah.
to our listeners?
Yeah. I mean, one of my big things is just communication is so key. Speak with whoever is going to be your healthcare agent or your executor or your financial power of attorney and say, listen, I've put you down as insert role here, right here, but communicate what your wishes are, where your important paperwork is, where to find things. Communication, communication, communication. I cannot stress that enough. Don't let them find out that they have inherited that role, in surprise. Also, don't try to settle scores or make your estate plan a punitive document. That is no fun. I've seen that happen where, your sweet little daughter married Axel, who is a motorcyclist and has a crazy tattoo, and you're not happy about it. So you're going to leave them out of the will until they divorce, Axel. Don't do that. Don't make your document or your will a punitive document. From a logistical standpoint, and I know this because this has happened to me personally, co-executors, co-powers of attorney, just name one person, just in terms of, like I said, logistics and simplicity. If when you have those documents, if you have a co-appointed or, you know, role, it just makes it harder for people to have to get signatures, to have to be on the same page to make decisions. So I just say, you may think, or you say, I love all my kids equally. I don't want to choose between them. Believe me, it'll make things so much simpler if you just name one. And then have a family meeting and say, here's what I'm doing. Here's the plan. And I hope you guys will be on the same page with me.
So Rachel, this is one of the things that I think a lot of people when you've been diagnosed with cancer or you're afraid of end of life, you want every dollar to be left for your family and your legacy, or you want every dollar to pay for healthcare fees because it's not exactly cheap to have cancer. So I can understand that a lot of people right now in the back of their minds are thinking this is something only rich people can do, or it's out of bounds, or there's no way I could ever invest money here. So let's have the difficult conversation of like, what does it feel like? And financially, is this something that's a big burden for most of your clients?
Yeah, it's not a huge significant, burden. And usually working with me, even though I cannot execute a will, a power of attorney, or a trust, I can help to steer you in the right direction, to find the right resources to help you get organized that will really maximize any planning, that you do. There are tons of free resources out there. You can download the Georgia Advanced Directive for Healthcare out there, and wherever you are in your state, you can usually find a free copy. And then there are lots of other things that are free to you that you can do now to help safeguard and preserve and organize your legacy. I have a great freebie that if you email me, I'll send to you that walks you step by step through naming a legacy contact with Apple, or going in your Google account and naming an inactive account manager, and other things that are no cost, that are easy to do. And I give you sort of the step-by-step. But also, working with me, I will help come up with a customized roadmap that fits your needs and goals, and try to be, of course, respectful of your budget and what's going to be best for you.
For sure. Okay. So you just mentioned people can email you. So my final question for you is, Rachel, how can someone find you, knowing that you're not someone that like you're not in the yellow book as like the death doer. So like, how can someone find your organization and begin to get some of the resources you've mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to my website at myafterlight.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Rachel Donnelly, Instagram, at myafterlight. You can also reach me. I'm on Facebook. And then if you want to send an email to hello@myafterlight.com, I will be able to send you that resource and any other resources that might be helpful to you.
Okay. So I just want to make sure everyone has this. So take out your pen and paper right now. myafterlight.com. This will all be linked at the bottom of this podcast episode as well, because we want to make sure you have access to all of the resources we've mentioned today. We'll also add the Georgia, where you can go and do some advanced directives and planning. So we'll make sure we have some of those links for you as well. But likely your state, if you're not in Georgia, we'll have some of those links that you can tap into and just do a quick Google search. But we know that this will take away the pain and misery of your family and friends having to deal with this after your loss. So be a pal and make this happen. And it's nothing anyone wants to think about. We all know that. But if not, everyone is going to have on Angel's Wings played for their closing song of their service when that's not a song you like, or something that you don't want in the afterlife. So this is your shot to say, I want my second line, or I want to do something crazy, or I want to be dumped at sea, or whatever it happens to be. So I encourage everyone to just take a minute and choose to plan for the worst so you can live in the best, because that's what this is really going to let you do. Take away this worry, give Rachel a call at myafterlife.com and understand what options you have to really prepare your family for if anything were to happen, and make sure they're in a really good place. So Rachel, I can't thank you enough for dropping these knowledge bombs on our audience. We really are trying to do everything we can to make cancer suck less, and helping people not live in fear and instead live in joy is one of the things I am personally most passionate about. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. This has been awesome.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We've got a number of great episodes coming up. Certainly you can go back and hear episode 1, which is my full story, to understand how I was able to beat stage 4 aggressive and operable chemo-resistant cancer. I'll just remind any of you who are facing the worst of the worst, be a data G, and you never know if there's another piece of data that you can use to unlock information to give you more continuity of life. But as you're being a data G, make sure you're planning for the end. So that way, you know, this is well taken care of, and that's not an area where you have to invest energy. From all of us at Mojo Health, we hope may you live long and lucky, and we're going to send you the absolute best. And please, please plan for the worst so you can live for the best. Thanks all. Take care.